Good evening. How are you? Well, it's a nice evening. It's overcast, and the Thomas Jefferson report is that the temperature is 72, the humidity is 59, and the wind is at 6 miles an hour. And I guess I generally feel that, although I don't feel the wind. And that could be the trees, the road. We're in the shadow of a mountain. Anyhow, those are all possible. I call it a mountain, for the East Coast. It's actually called the Short Hill Mountain. So, what is it? Wall-to-wall coverage of the alleged effort to assassinate Donald Trump. And instead of being grateful, but for the grace of God go I, and thanking the Secret Service that took the precautions that they did, he goes around blaming Dems and others who criticize him for the problems. Of course he doesn't want us to criticize. This guy is the poster child for victimhood. So here he goes and he attacks every segment of society. And he charges those who push back against his lies, his disinformation, and his hate speech. And he says somehow they're responsible, rather than what Trump himself says, that at the very least would be irritating. And we all know, it's a fact now, that people can't stand to hear his voice. I listen to it, but I feel I am disciplining myself to listen to it for the content so I can comment on it when it's important to do so. And it's ironic on several levels, including Trump's accusations against others being responsible for somebody trying to shoot at him. It's ironic that it appears that the shooter was a supporter of Trump at one point. Hell hath no fury, like a spurned Trump supporter, I suppose. And it may be embarrassing more than that. Like the Secret Service may have done such a good job of saving him that it's going to be hard to prove that he had the intent to hurt Trump at all. They have held him based on charges involving the guns he had that he shouldn't have. And that makes sense. And while they continue to investigate, I don't know if they've gotten anything on social media or friends or anything else like that. This fellow appears to be, I think he's 59, he appears to be a one-man crime wave of small crimes. And I don't know that he's shown any special political interest until it appears he decided to sit out all night at Mar-a-Lago, waiting for his opportunity to shoot the Hulk playing golf. So it doesn't end there. In the category of don't know when to stop, don't know what's the right behavior, we have Elon Musk posting, why aren't there any efforts against the Biden and Harris? What? How can this guy be such a genius? And he is, obviously, when it comes to certain financial matters and inventions and so forth like that, and be so dull to, human behavior, to conducting himself in an adult manner, and being concerned that what he says, just as what Trump says, constitute the kind of hate speech that gets us into this jam. At the same time, while you're destroying the law and ignoring the Constitution and slandering anybody who criticizes with you and saying it doesn't matter if something's true or not, just as long as we can make it into the mix and keep me in the television cycle every day, that's all that it's about. Now, Lindsey Graham, to give you an example of the predictive ability of these guys, in 2022, he said there'd be riots in the streets if Trump is prosecuted. Okay, well, did you see any riots in the streets? No, I didn't. But that's their thing. And I think it's because they have embraced the notion that the only way they win this election is by violence, by revolution. Now, I had a report, and I couldn't confirm it. I had a report that Lindsey Graham went on the air on one of the talking head shows this weekend, and he talked about there'll be a civil war if Trump loses. I don't know, he may have said that, and I don't know that there'd be a civil war. But I think what they're really talking about is a revolution, and I've mentioned the categories before. We want to overrun our democracy or republic, depending on how you want to emphasize what it is. It is a republic. Everybody doesn't get to make the decisions. We choose our leaders, so we have a republic, as opposed to a democracy like the Greeks would have, in which you would throw voting elements into a large urn, for example, one of many ways to keep track of votes before we had electronic machines to do that. So he's warning against a civil war. What kind, I think that there is no revolution that I can think of through history, and you're welcome to tell me, that doesn't turn to violence. And, when France was trying to mimic our success with England, they found that because they didn't know exactly what they wanted to do, and they started cutting off the heads of people, that the military came in. That was the reaction to suppress. And so they traded a monarch for an emperor, a guy named Napoleon. Now the Irish have had a long fight, and not dissimilar from us, and they were being treated as a colony, and they resented it. In other words, the independence they have of their parliament was struck down, and then there was a push to give them home rule, but they wanted independence. They didn't want home rule. They wanted to have their own government, and in fits and starts and with violence, the Troubles ultimately did result in that. Now, maybe no government on earth can possibly do what's necessary to govern and lead and be fair and just. But when you have people talking openly about violence and civil war and revolution, you have a different category of hurt for the people, for the nation, for the world, given our size. And so this is what we see on a day-to-day basis. Now, I don't wish anyone to shoot this bastard, but I don't think he should be allowed to run around saying, please be quiet because of the outrageous things I'm saying. I'm putting myself at risk, and you make it worse by telling everybody I'm doing hateful things. This is the craziness about anything connected to Trump. And that this becomes normalized day by day by some who don't know how to push back. And I'm talking about some of the hosts. Now, I'm a fan of Ari, and I saw something very interesting this evening when he said he wouldn't read certain things that were said by Trump. And he said it because it wasn't true, and because anybody would be subject to that fact check. Now, Ari, in my opinion, has always had a disciplined way about these things, and I'm sure he has his own feelings and so forth, but he tries to be a professional journalist, and I think he does very well. There are other examples, and another one, choosing CNN, and I don't mean by limiting it to exclude others who are doing a good job. Dana Bash, she's there. The fella who was handling the recent debate, he was measured, he was conscious, he was careful, he was right. And so those kinds of people are going to save the republic in conjunction with us on the ground, helping to keep these politicians honest, pushing them to do the right thing and voting for them in a wave of blue that will wash away all the red pain and suffering and bloodletting that many Republicans are prepared to do. And having said that, I think it's only fair to say that today, those who work with Ronald Reagan said if he were here today, he would be opposed to Trump. And those who work for Reagan are saying they're going to vote for Kamala and Tim. This is reassuring. And these are the good signs about what's going on, instead of the circus that is Trump. It's a circus of pain and suffering. And, you know, I think that we have to daily be vigilant to not accept without scrutiny anything that the Republicans having anything to do with Trump's campaign. And I remain firm in the view that under no circumstance should we be voting for any Republican this election. Let them prove themselves. Some are trying, and I believe that they're sincere, that they want to go back to the kind of debate that doesn't embrace lawlessness, unconstitutionality, chaos, and monarchy. But as much as we want to embrace it, we've got to see more, and this election will tell us if they're with us or not. In the past, we've seen elections affected by race. There's the old example of Bradley out in California, in which people, when interviewed, said that they would vote for him, but they didn't. And it was because they told the people taking the polls what they knew they should be saying, although that was not what they believed. So we have to wait and see how the vote rolls out on November the 5th. But in the meantime, we have to fight like hell to make that vote a resounding denial of everything having to do with Trump and his corrupt minions. So that's what I got today. I enjoyed myself in court today. When I say I enjoyed myself, it's a professional meaning that myself and an associate of my firm, we did some good work on behalf of a client. And our momentum of persuasion is, in my opinion, always improved by tailoring your argument to the facts and to rationales that make sense under the circumstances. So that's what I do in my daily life in court, and that's what I think we have to do in this election. Because the madness, the insanity, the foolishness, the repetitive lies and so forth cannot be the measure of a civilization. A measure of a civilization is how it treats its own. And there's no question between those in the White House and those Democrats running to carry on the work of Biden and Harris in the next administration as compared to Trump's denigration of all that's good and right and just in America, all the possibilities, all the opportunities, all the future that could be ours if we had people that are in the way. So I say goodbye to you from my Cathedral of Trees, and with any luck, I'll be out here again tomorrow. Bye-bye.